So, Jay, you and I previously put up an episode where we defined and explained what they call an X9 certificate. And an X9 certificate is a consortium certificate from the X9 financial industry, American Financial Industry Consortium. And X9 certificates were conceived and created to provide a consortium PKI for interbanking applications so that banks could communicate with each other and they would have this single consortium route that they would use that would allow them to avoid some of the changes that were coming to the WebPKI and still have this banking interoperability.
So the deprecation of client authentication certificates,
Yeah.
shortening of certificate lifespans.
Yeah. Mandatory revocation, things along these lines. Because of the deprecation of client authentication in particular being something that affects lots and lots of enterprises, and because of the nature of X9 being something that really anyone can go by, we have seen a lot of confusion where people think that X9 is a good path forward for the deprecation of mTLS. We actually think it's not a good path forward. So what we want to do is we want to explain the reasons why X9 is an extremely poor choice if the reason you're getting it is because you want to keep doing mTLS, right? Again, with these interbanking applications, I want to set those aside. Those are what it's designed for. But if you're just general purpose use because I wish I could keep doing mTLS with my public PKI, my public CA, but I no longer can, so I'm just going to go get this instead, right? That is actually not a good solution, and there's reasons why it's not a good solution, and a lot of people don't realize that, so we just want to explain that today. Okay?
Tim, before you start,
Sure.
I want to say that publicly trusted client authentication certificates were a bad idea too.
Yes, and that's actually the first one on the list. So the first one on the list and the first reason that X9 is a poor choice is it doesn't actually authenticate anything. So we give it this word, we call it authentication. That's a misnomer, right? Nothing is being authenticated. If you're getting a public WebPKI certificate today, because they're still allowed, and you're using it for quote unquote client authentication, you're not authenticating your client. All that you're proving is that whoever got this cert is able to get a public cert, which, by the way, it can be had for free, right? There's no bar at all to get over to get that. You haven't authenticated a thing. And that's true for the WebPKI, and that's going to be equally true for X9. So what have I proven? As opposed to, let's say, a private CA that I control. Well, now I have proven that you've gotten a certificate from me as the source, and I control who gets it. That's a horse of a different color in terms of what we've actually authenticated.
Here's a slightly different way of saying it, Tim.
Yeah.
But I'll read along the lines of what you've just said.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people over the past 30 years of doing this stuff that think that there's some kind of magic in a cert that roots up to something that has a name.
Right.
In other words, the term self-signed certificate was always used as the attacker. The attacker is using a self-signed cert. They minted a cert for themselves and have used it for something bad because a process wasn't right. We've seen that for years and years. A lot less of that now because we know what we're doing now compared to where it was years ago. We knew how to mint certs. The problem is we didn't know how to control them. Thing is, though, is that that attacker model made people think that, oh, for authentication, I should use a cert that's not self-signed, in other words, a privately trusted certificate. I should use something that roots up to a named CA. You're not getting anything from that.
Right. Yeah.
Is the point.
Right. I mean, so what do we get from that? Public CA TLS certs serve an essential purpose, which is irreplaceable any other way, which is yoking certificate ownership to domain control.
Correct.
Irreplaceable in its importance, but it is not part of the client authentication process, right? That does not enter into client authentication like inherently by how the technology works. So you don't get that benefit in this case.
So that's the truth for publicly trusted certs.
Right.
It's also true for a
X9.
general purpose private CA.
Correct.
Okay, so it in itself is a self-signed cert,
Yes.
somewhere in the middle of all of that.
Right.
And that, what that roots up to gets you nothing
Yes.
from an authentication standpoint.
Correct. Absolutely. And you might say, well, what do I know? Well, they got an X9 cert. So what do I know? I know they have a credit card. Like, I know nothing else.
Nothing.
Right? There's no information associated with that. Again, you could imagine a scenario where you're real happy with a consortium cert. If I'm in a consortium scenario and I want to know that this is a consortium member, because if you're not a consortium member, you don't get to come in and see the goodies. Then a consortium certificate solves that. And then it's really a function of how tightly do you control access from the consortium. Now, X9 certs, as it happens, just go buy them. There's no control at all. So that argument of, well, I know you're in the club, so I know something, isn't applicable here because that's not the way the distribution of the certificates is being managed.
The possession of the cert should mean something.
Right.
In the case of X9, doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It
means DCV has been performed. It kind of means the same thing that a WebPKI cert means.
Any good consortia cert
Yeah.
is a private CA.
Yep.
That's been agreed upon by multiple parties. Obvious, too simple to say. What gives it its power is the definition of the walled garden.
Yes. Right.
When you don't have a walled garden, you don't even have
it's
a
open
purpose.
to the public. It's
right.
open to the public, right? It's open to anybody. So it doesn't authenticate anything at all. So that's problem number one. And your point is well taken. We have the exact same problem with WebPKI for mTLS today.
You haven't solved anything.
Agreed,
Correct.
right? But we haven't solved anything with X9. We still have that same problem. But it's worse because at least in the case of the WebPKI, you have the roots. In the case of X9 is on a private route. And it is a private route that does not appear by default on systems. So these routes are going to have to be installed. And in the event they are not installed and managed correctly, then your authentication is going to break. So it doesn't even have an advantage over your own private CA. If I have my private CA, then I have the advantage. I know that I gave you that cert. So something's being authenticated. And also, I have to make sure the root's installed. Well, if I go and I get an X9 cert, anybody could go get it, and I still have to go install that root. So essentially what I'm doing, it's like saying, the private CA scenario is saying, I'm going to give a key to the door to every employee and say, here's your key to the door. X9 is like saying, I'm going to go through the trouble of changing my lock, but anybody can go get a key to the door. Well, why did you do that? It's the wrong use for what it is.
A lot of people don't understand what the cert is for.
Yeah.
They think without any other thought, my cert has to root up to some kind of a name.
Yeah.
And that's it giving you nothing.
And I don't know how this came about, but somehow there's a broad, I think, misunderstanding of the nature of what X9 is. X9 is a private CA, it's a consortium certificate. It's nothing other than that. right? It's not any more official than that.
I would say that if it were kept to being just the FIs, the financial industry players, and they used it for very specific purposes and they agreed upon it, hallelujah. There's a ton of consortia CAs out there.
Yeah.
I don't know why X9 gets so much press. I mean, there's a ton of these that are out there.
Yeah.
And but what all the good ones have in common is that they have a very well-defined wild card.
They're defined, yes. And the thing about X9 is it's not really defined, right? And then the third problem, if all of that's not enough for you, it's a single source. So there is only one CA. And you can't multi-source. You can't have any redundancy, right? You are completely dependent on this single source provider. A lot of people have policies against that. There are a lot of regulations against that. DORA doesn't allow that, by way of example. So if you want to follow DORA, redundancy is built into the guidelines. And X9, by its nature, is a non-redundant consortium cert. So you're probably not even in compliance with the requirements that you have to be in compliance with.
Most of the consortia PKI I've ever worked with dual source at the very least.
Yeah.
That's extremely common. Why X9 didn't, I would say as well, Tim, to add to what you just said, your flexibility of your certificate profile. You're buying into something that was pre-baked.
Yeah.
When you don't have to.
Right.
If you're running your own private CA,
you
can build your own certificate profile as you see fit and as you need it.
Right.
Certificate lifespans, RSA versus ECC, et cetera, all these things.
Yeah. And if the thing that's driving you to X9 is you want to be able to have a client auth EKU, you can do that with a private CA. Just have one. It's up to you.
That's you get that out of the box with a private CA. Yes,
absolutely. Sir. So, anyway, so we just wanted to clarify these things because I think a lot of people out there are believing that this is a solution that it just isn't.
I don't want to see people get burned by making an assumption.
Yeah.
And I just don't see enough people talking about the proper usage of it, what it is really meant for. Its open-endedness is its weakness.
Yeah.
If it wasn't so open-ended, it would be a good consortia CA like the others.
Yeah.
But anyway, Tim, thank you for that.
All right. So there you go, Jay.